So last week I made a game in 4 days for Game Maker's Toolkit's Game Jam. The theme for the jam was Countdown, which for some reason made me think of Count Dracula falling down, potentially, or vampires falling down. The connection was a bit loose, so I thought about maybe having a system where you have projectiles with numbers over them, which count down after they bounce off of something and explode when they reach 0. Because I had a super tight deadline for this project, I thought I would need to use TileMaps to help me build the levels quickly. I heard that in Godot you can set them up with properties like collision shapes and custom data I could reference in my scripts. I did some YouTube research on this and came across a video by DevPoodle which explained how to set up isometric tiles easily, which I thought would be cool to try out. Kind of gives the illusion of a 3D game but in 2D. It meant that I wouldn't have to build any 3D assets as well. At the same time I thought about the art style. I needed something simple but striking. 2D pixel art seemed to be the quickest approach to iterate on as a solo dev, and for some reason the old Batman 90s style cartoons and Samurai Jack popped into my mind, so that helped inform the colour palette. My main guy was chucking garlic dough balls so fast that they bounced off walls, so I felt he had to be a beefy boy. And then by contrast, the vampires could be a bit hunched and creepy in their movement. For the coding side, I first got my player moving about, then I implemented the throw. I thought the maths of the dough ball bounce would be a bit tricky to calculate, since we had an isometric perspective, but it turns out no, it's actually pretty easy. I put some custom data on the tiles that let the code know where to spawn the dough balls, and another bit of data to set whether that tile was destructible. I also put in a check in the physics process, which Godot updates anytime an object in the game moves, to determine whether the player's global position was on a tile. If not, the player would fall. Next I had to work on the enemies, which took more time than I anticipated, especially making the patrol work while the actual landscape of the level changed as time went on. I had a state machine with randomised timers for these boys, so they could switch to idle state every now and then to a throw state where they would lob a projectile at the player. To mix things up in the levels, I thought about creating some special blocks. These ones required your bounce count to be on a certain number to be destroyed. This kind of worked, but I wish I'd had some more time to perfect this. Sometimes the dough balls can hit the corners of the tiles and the collision wouldn't be counted properly. Time was running out though, so I whipped up some levels with everything I'd implemented until that point. I'd underestimated the amount of time audio creation would sap from the development time. It was very fun recording the audio, which I then chopped up in DaVinci Resolve and tweaked pitch in various places. But I didn't really know how to export multiple clips at once in Resolve, so I put each clip into its own timeline and totally missed this checkbox, which would have saved me 2 hours. Then I had to rapidly throw together some kind of start menu and pause menu and level picker, and I'm not a fan of making UIs, so I left this until hours before the deadline. I went back to YouTube research to figure out how to export the project for HTML from Godot, as I thought it'd be great if you could play the game in the browser. I was hoping since it was a 2D game, which is fairly light, it'd be okay. It turns out that generations before me had come to this Gwizz video in a similar time of need. Exporting the HTML version of the game turned out to be incredibly easy, at least for this project, and the browser version seemed to match exactly what I was seeing in Godot, which was delightful news. You just had to download these export templates, which took around 20 minutes, but the actual export of the project was done in seconds, and the upload to itch.io was all okay. And that was it. I slept after that. The game in this video can be played by clicking the first link in the description, and if you're not already subscribed and you want to see more videos like this, I would be delighted if you could hit the subscribe button. Goodbye for now.